Welcome back to Jarred Up January. And as you know, I've said it before, but I'll do it one more time. This is a collaboration between Sutton's Days, The Needy Homesteader, More to Life, Paul's Rule of Thumb, Angie's Pantry, Mouse Toes, Tuliloo Creates, Whippoorwill Holler, Freedom Homesteader, The Purposeful Pantry, and finally, me. Now I'm keeping a playlist of all the Jarred Up January. So if you want to click on that playlist, you can see the videos before me so far for Jarred Up January. And I encourage you to check out every single one. So today I'm making you another recipe out of the Better Homes and Garden Canning Guide. I really like this. It has recipes that are a little bit kind of gourmet and a little bit different. And let me read you the title of this one. It is the Butternut Squash White Bean Soup with Rosemary and Tomatoes. Doesn't that sound good? And it's with cherry tomatoes. Now, when I first made the soup, I thought, oh, my husband's not going to like it because his idea of soup is having, a lot of meat in it. And he is not a fan of squash of any kind. Well, I made this and he really enjoyed it. He thought the broth was very savory. The butternut squash chunks kind of absorbed some of the broth and it made them even better. And he thought this was a fantastic soup recipe, so I was relieved. I also like it. But, during the winter months, which, hey, January, snow on the ground, cold outside, soup or stew is so comforting. And I try to have a lot of different soups and stews on my canning pantry shelf so I can make a quick supper or lunch anytime I choose. So come along with me while we make butternut squash white bean soup with rosemary and tomatoes. Now, one word of caution, this is a pressure canning recipe. And what does that mean? It means you can't water bath can it. It can only be pressure canned in a pressure canner. Now, if you've never pressure canned before, it can be scary for some people. So they never, I know some people have actually written me that they have a pressure canner, but they haven't taken it out of the box because they're afraid to use it. Well, I have a video that if you actually, I think here, anyway, in the corner, if you click on that, it'll take you step by step on how to use your pressure canner. And as long as you follow those steps, it's easy and it's safe. So don't just stick with water bath canning. Try pressure canning too. It really gives you a lot more options on your pantry shelves because you can have meat and fish and other vegetables that you cannot water can. Now I should mention I also have a playlist of all my other pressure canning recipes, and you can reach that in the corner clicking the I and see other things that we love to pressure can. I want to point out something. The recipe said to use cannellini beans and to use only dry ones because it said if we used any canned beans, they already really were too processed, and by the time you put them in the canner and process them again, they're going to turn real mushy. So you're going to have to make up your own dried beans for this recipe. But I went to the grocery store and there was no cannellini beans on the shelf, and I only hope I'm pronouncing that right. But I did get some navy beans. Okay, we often use these in bean soup. The difference is the cannellini bean is kind of, well, it looks like a kidney bean, except it's white. Now my understanding is there's not that much of a taste difference between these navy beans and the cannellini beans. The difference, however, is that the cannellini beans don't lose their outer skin as fast. What can happen when these get cooked is the outer skin kind of comes off and they float, and so these can get a little bit mushier. So we'll see how they turn out in this recipe. Now, let me show you how to fix the beans so you'll be ready to make this recipe. To cook your 1 pound beans, wash them well, drain them, place them in a big pot, and add 2 quarts water. You want to bring it up to a boil and then cover it and simmer for only 2 minutes and then remove from heat. Keep the cover on and let it stand for 1 hour. Now you're going to drain your beans again, put them back in the pot, and add another 2 quarts fresh water, and you're going to bring them to a boil and reduce your heat to sim for 30 minutes. You're going to drain them, set them aside, and they're ready to use in the recipe. So here's the ingredients we need. 1/3 cup olive oil. Okay, got that. And I'm dripping some. And 2 medium onions, very thinly sliced. And I did shed some tears doing this. And then we have 6 cloves garlic, minced. The vampires will stay away from me today because I can smell it. It's underneath my fingernails. And we want 3 pounds butternut squash. And this is a butternut squash. You want one bigger than this because you have to end up with 7 cups diced butternut squash. And we have that right here. Okay, and you're going to want 3 cups cooked cannellini beans. Well, my grocery store did not carry those dried beans. So I decided to substitute navy beans. I mean, they are white. What's next? We have 3 cups halved cherry or grape tomatoes. And here we are, all halved up. And I have a little tip for you on this. Your cherry tomatoes have to be halved, or they could be grape tomatoes, which are a little bigger. But my best tip on that is use a ceramic knife. It just makes the cutting through easier. See, hardly any juice. It's much easier than using a regular knife. And this recipe would be so great at kind of the end of the gardening season when you still got cherry tomatoes, but you also have butternut squash on the vine. It would make a great fresh soup too. And then we have 1 tablespoon snipped fresh rosemary. Oh, that was a problem. It's winter and I don't have any fresh rosemary. So instead, I substituted 1 teaspoon of dried rosemary. And then we need 1½ teaspoon salt and 1/2 teaspoon cracked black pepper. So I have all of that right here, ready to go. And then we only have 1 remaining ingredient, and that is our chicken broth. And we need a lot of it. We need 3½ quarts of chicken broth, and that will take up all 3 of these containers of chicken broth. So let's get started. Now I forgot to mention, we need 6 quarts for that. And this is the new ball jars. They're smooth. You know, they don't have the little design on them. They do say ball right down here. So they'd be easier if you have decorative labels that you'd like to use. So we have 6 of these quart jars. Again, wide mouth because that makes it easier to put the big chunks of butternut squash in. And of course we have 6 rings and 6 lids. It can make it easier to peel your butternut squash if you put it in the microwave for just 30 seconds. And you just use a regular vegetable peeler and you just start at the top and work down. And once we get it all peeled, then we'll be back to dice it. Now when you're going to cut it, hold on to it well, have a good knife, and then what I find is just rocking it a bit is easier to cut through. Okay, so we got about 1 inch thick, and then we're just going to cut off a piece here, piece here, and with the middle we'll do maybe 1/4. They're supposed to be about 1 inch. Okay, and then here. Okay, so you get the idea. We're going to do this until we have 7 cups of diced 1 inch cubes squash. Now we're going to add our onions. We've got our oil already in here heating up. Mix them in the oil. We're going to want to cook these for maybe 8 minutes or so. We want to get them nice and golden. So back when that's ready. Okay, I think you can see they're getting kind of a golden color here. Now it's time to add our minced garlic. We're going to want to cook it for about another minute here. And this garlic and onion should add a lot of flavor to our oil, which will add flavor to the broth. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, Google, stop timer. Okay, now it's time to add our squash. Tomatoes. Add the beans. And we buried this, huh? And then we want to, and then add our spices. One of our 32 ounce, another 32 ounce. Let's mix it up a bit now. Nice and colorful with the red and orange. Now with our final. I could have used a bigger pot. So we're going to bring this to a boil, but then we're going to simmer it for only 5 minutes. So hopefully it doesn't go all over my new clean cooktop. Be back when it's at a boil. Okay, we got it boiling. Now we're going to put a top on it. Turn down our burner to sim. And we're going to do that for 5 minutes. Wow. I am so lucky. I thought for sure that pot was going to boil over on my newly cleaned stovetop, because that's usually what happens. If I clean the stovetop, something boils over. But it didn't, but it sure came close. Now usually when I make a soup or any soup for my canning, I'm using my big stock pot. But I didn't make that today because I kind of wanted to show you in the pot itself, and my stock pot is so tall it's hard to see in it. So don't do what I do. Use a bigger pot when you're making this recipe. Time to fill our jars. I'm going down the bottom here, getting a nice big bunch. Make sure I get beans with it. Broth here. You just want to take it up to here. You want to keep an inch head space. So there we go. I'm just going to fill the remaining jars and I'll be back. Now it's time to check for air bubbles. And you don't have to use this debubbling tool. You can use a chopstick even. Just don't use anything with metal. You don't want it like a metal knife. Okay. Now we want to make sure the tops are nice and clean so we have a good seal. And just one more. We're going to put on our lids. And I used to heat them up a bit, but they say you don't have to, and I haven't had a sealing problem, although I probably shouldn't say that. I am probably jinxing myself right now. And it's nice and hot there. Finger tighten our lids. Anyway, you get the idea. You do it to all these and we'll be ready to put it in the canner. I've put the required amount of water according to my canner instructions. I have lubricant around the edge. And now it's time to put in our jars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the 6th one will go in the middle. There we go. Now I've already checked the vent in the lid. Always do that. And it's time to make sure we get it on even here. We're going to screw on our lid. The lid is screwed on tightly. We're now going to wait until we get a steady stream out of here. Okay, 10 minutes has passed for our little geyser here. I'm going to put on 10-pound weight for my elevation. And then I'm going to wait until this gauge gets to 10 and this starts to jiggling. And then we're going to time it for 75 minutes. Okay, starting to do the jig, the jiggle jig. And this is up to 10. So now we start counting for 75 minutes. So now we're going to process this for 75 minutes. And you might say, hey, hold on, that's quarts. 75 minutes with chicken would be pints. It would be 90 minutes with chicken. Well, that is true if you put the meat in, but if it's just broth, you only need 75 minutes for quarts. Okay, the 75-minute timers went off, so I'm turning off my burner. And now we're just going to have to wait until our gauge goes down to here. Okay, our gauge is down to 0. It's a little hot. Take that off. We're going to unscrew the lid. We're going to take this lid off, and then we're going to wait 10 more minutes to take out the jars. "20 minutes has passed and all 6 jars have popped. By that I mean sealed, and I'm going to wait 24 hours, and then I'm going to write on the top what's in the jar, and I'm going to put the date on it, and then I'll take this ring off, and then I'll display them proudly on my pantry shelves. But stick with me later because we're going to do a taste test. Warmed it up for 10 minutes. I always like a little pepper in my soup. A little fresh grated Parmesan on top. Doesn't that look good? And then serve it with a baguette. Doesn't that look delicious? It's still pretty hot, but let me take a little of the broth here. Oh, it's really good. You can taste the tomato, chicken broth, but it does have the hint of the rosemary. Let's get it with a little of the butternut squash. Well, of course, the squash melts right in your mouth. Really good. Get some of our beans up here. so good, especially with a little of that Parmesan cheese on top. This is soup that is wonderful for a cold winter day. Really warms you up. And it's really, really tasty too. I highly recommend you try it. Getting every last drop here. Thank you so much for joining me for this Jarred Up January video. I hope you will try this recipe, and I hope you're checking out all the other Jarred Up January videos all month long. It really is amazing. There's so many recipes already that I want to try. So please, I hope you will consider canning this if you pressure can. And if you don't pressure can, hey, no time like the present to start. As always, thank you so much for your support. Please subscribe, share the knowledge, and thumbs up if you like this video.